5, that maybe these elections will not bring this transition. So
how different is it from other pressure groups? Reform agenda.
It doesn't have to be different. You see, I have refused to be put under pressure.
People's government.
To end up lying. It does not have to be new.
So it is just
even the actors don't have to be new.
A change
because
of
the
name.
Subject matter is an old subject matter.
So it is only a change
It is getting
name.
together. It is getting together after an attempt during elections that were extremely violent, in which a candidate was determining the course, the course of the election. If he says they arrest you, they arrest you. They beat you, they beat you. So someone you're competing with, but determining how you must compete against him. So after elections, we will certainly need to get together, because we never had an election as the Constitution demands. Okay. The dates were just announced and then went into. So therefore, this particular front, those of us who have participated in discussing its formation, it has nothing to do with the elections.
Okay.
That we wait for elections of 2026, no. We need to have a transition even today. We've been talking about tourism investment. It is going to be very, very difficult to attract credible investors in a country whose future is uncertain, a country that has not tested itself after the change. Because you see, people have lost the money, and I kept telling people, someone who will come to Uganda to invest $100 million US, it will take him not less than 20 years
to
recoup that money. Therefore, any investor that you want to attract, want to be certain that this country, when one leader leaves, you're not going to have the same problems that most of the African countries have had. So stability of Uganda does not rely on the continuity of one person in power, because at one time we will have to end. But that end is what now we must be discussing and make sure it happens peacefully. So this front is to ask all of you, including the media. In other countries, the clergy, the religious peoples have made a contribution. They are the ones who stopped Bakiri Muruzi from becoming a president for life.
Even in Congo, it is the Catholic Church that,
yes,
that changed leadership.
They are the ones who stopped Chiruba in Zambia from becoming a president for life. So there must be effort, collective effort by all Ugandans who care about the country to bring Museveni's rule to an end, a peaceful end. I asked him one time when we were on the radio to give this country a gift. We don't have to be violent to change leaders, but we can't guarantee that there will never be violence, because where there has been violence, sometimes by the way, it's not the main competitors that are causing violence. So this front, People's Front for Transition, is just to renew the demand that we must discuss Museveni's end. We must have a transition as was envisaged in the Constitution, which transition he has kept postponing by changing the Constitution. And we are inviting all Ugandans to peacefully begin demanding. And that's why we said the first activity of the front is going to be the red card. When you meet Chris Baryomunsi buying, you meet, remind him that your time, please.
But you didn't bring a red card here.
Because you didn't ask me to
but you see, the opportunity, no one will give you the opportunity. Chris, for example, is my at a higher level, is my boss. How can I ask you to give him a red card?
my red card is in the car. So when we are going, I'm going to show Chris.
You give him outside in the parking, and when I am gone. But Chris, more seriously, sorry, not Chris, Honorable Semujju.
Yes.
There are two following questions that I wanted to ask. Then I bring in Honorable Chris and Council Birete. A fundamental question that has been asked, and I think I see some people in FDC not happy with it. But as far as the public is concerned, that's a fundamental question. The question of the opposition unity. The moment the front was announced, the first exchange of this and the other comes from the leading opposition party currently, National Unity Platform, and then the ping pong with FDC. How do you generate consensus just at a level of, intra-opposition?
It's very difficult. I have read the history of many of these. I don't know how many meetings that the people in South Sudan had, even in Kampala, in Entebbe. They are the common enemy in Khartoum, but they also had their problems that they up to now failed to solve. Maybe it is natural, it is human. When Mr. Museveni and group were in Ruwero, you need to read Charlie Gonza's book. They were even killing themselves. At one time, they even wanted to remove Museveni, that he had stayed away for long. When he went to Sweden, I think for 6 months, the groups that remained there sat down and said, this guy is a coward. When he comes, we remove him. They even said the Mbabazis who were in Kenya, these ones are just enjoying sausage. So it is natural that you will have people grumbling, sometimes over something, sometimes over nothing. But also you need to understand that...
but how do you make it a strength and not a weakness, especially perceptually?
You keep talking to each other. You keep talking to each other. I don't think the NUP leaders that I have spoken to, I have shared the platform with, are quarreling as some of their ranks members were quarreling at the beginning. Maybe it takes time, but also there are those who legitimately feared that maybe Besigye is going to come back and he will dwarf us. So we don't want Besigye to come back. But we continue discussing, because before the formation, before the announcement, the formal announcement, we had a couple of meetings with everybody, including NUP, including some religious leaders, and we continue talking. Because I told the colleague, see, these things you're doing is a sacrifice. There is nobody who enjoys being beaten by the Kurisis. But it's a sacrifice that we must make. Because even the Kurisis, sometimes they are also victims. NRM people. The other day when they wanted to remove the bail, I reminded them in Parliament. I was in Maxon Bay in Uzira in B2. They arrested me for walking from Chireka to Banda. The initial proposal was to charge me with treason. Eventually they charged me with something less. But in B2, where I had been, just the NRM former vice chairman of Uganda and vice president Gibeon of Kenya had been there.
Is that the same place where there was Mike Mukula, there was Jim Mwezi?
Yes. And that's why when he took them to court, they said, please, we are all potential candidates for prison, even you. The only reason for you, Mr. President, you are lucky you are still a sitting president. But as soon as you leave, you become a candidate, you join. So we don't tamper with the bail. So we continue talking to each other. I don't think with this or any other effort that the disagreements will not be there. The disagreements are normal, even within the FDC.
Okay. You
might think that we are conflicting with NUP. But even within the FDC, even within other parties, that is human. You try to minimize the damage and then move. But I don't want to lose the main point. The main point is that this country must transit from Mr. Museveni's 36-year military rule to a civilian democratic rule, and then we grow the culture of changing leaders without having to shed blood.
Okay.
And that's why the whole idea of iPod was brought here from Ghana. They faced a similar situation, but they talked to each other and eventually agreed to restore term limits and also to subordinate themselves to those processes. That's what is lacking in Uganda.
Honorable Chris, as NRM, when you saw the new announcement of the front, the People's Front for Transition, what came to your mind? Did you get worried? Are you concerned that this pressure group is coming up again?
Not really. I don't even understand why you give it a space to be discussed on television for these minutes, because, like you correctly said, there have been similar pressure groups, Reform Agenda, Tubale Mese, People's Government, Tajakulaira. So this one transition is
Walk to work, 4GC.
Walk to work, 4GC. So this one is one among the many that we have seen. We have just come out of elections where Ugandans voted for the leaders that they want, from the level of the president down to the councillors. And some of us, Hon Semujju and I, were lucky we returned to parliament, others lost, but Ugandans expressed their free will. And so for Dr. Besigye and his team to now also want to switch on the politicking mode, I think by and large the pulse which we detect in the country, people have even rejected his announcement. And I can assure you, as the day follows the night, Ugandans will not embrace that, because at times people become tired of politicking. There is time for politicking, there is time for concentrating on work so that we can have food on our table. I think in my view, the major motivation is, and you see why you're asking Honorable Semujju to bring his card and I'd show it. I think he's half-hearted in this. As an FDC spokesperson, he may have to say yes, but I'm not very sure that if he opened his heart, he's fully into it. He's fully into it. My thinking is that the motivation for Dr. Besigye, who has struggled painfully in vain to make a case, is that, you see, there has been a transition in opposition politics in Uganda. FDC was founded by Dr. Besigye, was the most highly placed opposition political party, even enjoying the leader of opposition status in the parliament. Now in the last elections, NUP cannibalized the FDC in terms of displacing it and taking over. I think Dr. Besigye is just trying to occupy that space, because NUP and its leadership have also not showed their worth after getting those numbers of seats in parliament. I think the last many months since elections, they are also not there. You don't perpetuate them, you don't fill them. So Dr. Besigye has seen that gap and is trying to fill it and occupy that space. Why does he fight for this? What the Honorable Semujju may not tell the public, that opposition politics is very lucrative in Uganda and elsewhere. These people get funded. So if you present yourself as the most credible alternative who can remove Museveni or take over government, you get funding, you get support.
Why don't you join it?
I am comfortable where I am. I am not necessarily saying that the ruling party is not lucrative, but opposition politics, especially from external funders, that I say for as a matter of fact. So it is also jostling for that space, but most importantly, jostling for that support, especially from external funders, so that they just continue with their campaigns. But I think Ugandans are tired of this politicking, even those who want opposition politics. I don't think they want to be running on the streets every day, even when you have just come from a very fresh election. We have put in place a constitutional order where, to ascend to a position of leadership, you must compete, Ugandans have to vote. And that one, whether it's Dr. Besigye will not change that one. So for him to announce that we are going to remove the NRM government and President Museveni, not through elections, but through whatever he's organizing, I think it is just daydreaming. And Ugandans are now used to elections. So unless he's saying he's going to the bush, but there are no bushes today, they have been built with towns and so forth. So you are announcing that you want to topple government using an lawful and unconstitutional means. And you want our children to follow you to be tear gassed when your children are studying outside in good schools. Then you want my children who are here to go. I think Ugandans should
my children are outside and Chris's are here.
No, you, you, the organizers of this, your children are outside, and our children, the ordinary Ugandans, are here. Then you want our children to go beat your gas, to be killed on the street when you are studying. Ugandans should squarely
who is going to beat people on the street?
Of course, if you announce that you want to use an constitutional means to top government, the state is watching.
So that's what you are preparing?
Yeah, definitely.
That when people protest,
no, what
which
I'm
is
saying,
right in the constitution, you will beat them.
No, what I'm saying, the moment you say we want to topple government, not through elections, the quick and correct interpretation is that you want to use an constitutional means. And of course, any reasonable government, any reasonable state will not fold its hands. We're just waiting. You cross the line, breach the laws, then the coercive machine of the state will put you to line.
Chris, what happened when we got engaged in constitutional means, the last elections?
Which ones?
What happened?
Which ones?
We participated in the last elections.
Yes, Ugandans voted.
Was there no beating or no tear gas?
Ugandans voted. Of course, even within elections, if you breach the law, then you are confronted by the state organs, definitely. You may be referring to this incident of Honorable Chaguranyi being arrested and so forth. There was a law which we passed in the parliament, the standing order, that we control COVID-19. You are a member of parliament. Now, it doesn't mean because you are a candidate.
I don't remember any provision that gave you authority to kidnap people.
Okay, that's your
Take them
one.
to
No, what I'm saying,
beat them.
We had a debate in the parliament, in the government and the parliament, that we go ahead with elections despite COVID-19. We conduct these campaigns conscious of the fact that we must observe the SOPs. So it doesn't mean because you are a candidate, you are looking for votes, then you disregard what has been passed by parliament. So it doesn't mean that because there were elections, people were immune and you would just breach the law. So the point I am making is that if the transition campaign or this pressure group intends to use an unconstitutional, illegal means of trying to topple government, so don't expect that we shall lay a red carpet for you to pass on. You will definitely be confronted. Police will have to stop you to do that. Unless the activities are legal, lawful, and constitutional, well, good. But by the announcement which was made that you want the transition meaning removing a government which has just been elected a few months ago, the ink hasn't dried, and you think Ugandans, majority of whom have voted NRM, and then the state machinery, you think they will give you a red carpet, they will not, and they are waiting for you.
Okay. Sarah, there are two questions that during the launch, Besigye kept referring to, and then I also read a lengthier interview in Semujju's paper, The Observer, and he underscored the same. One is that there is a crisis in Uganda, democratic crisis, that's what he says. Then two, the question that the question of a kind of, you know, frustration sounding Besigye with especially the elites, people like you and I and the rest here, that and then he refers to them as idiots and all that. Is there a crisis in your view? What kind of crisis, and how should it be handled? The argument by Chris is that there has been an election, and that should be the means of changing power, which is constitutionally provided, and that there is a transition going on. It shouldn't only be from the perspective of Besigye or the FDC. What do you make of those differing arguments in this?
I think the basis of that argument is the expectations Ugandans got at the enactment of the 1995 Constitution. Just a day before independence, the 1995 Constitution made 26 years. In that Constitution, and in the terms of reference given to the Odoch Commission, there were two key issues. One was to ensure peaceful handover of power in Uganda, and the second one was to ensure that Uganda is governed on the basis of people's wishes, aspirations, and values. There are others, including the doctrine of separation of powers and the independence of the arms of government, which is also being tampered with under the bail debate and discretion of courts that the executive is contesting at the moment. So we have had this journey of the 1995 Constitution, but right at independence, there are clear fault lines in Ugandan's constitutional journey, right at independence time, starting with the Lancaster Conference, the Munster Report, and the processes that followed. So the practice, the tendency, even with the first post-independence government, was that once the constitution gets in your way, then it's the constitution to go. Leaders don't give way. That happened with the abolition of kingdoms. It started right at the anniversary of the first anniversary of our independence, when the courts had outruled the elections of the first ceremonial president, and then Obote decided to shortchange the court's decision by creating a ceremonial president through amending the constitution. And that caused the current Article 92 of our constitution, which says Parliament should never enact a law aimed at tampering or changing the decision of court. That is the basis. So we have this 40 constitutional journey as a country for 60 decades. A constitution gets in the way of leaders, it must be done with. Yet the constitution is neither self-enacting or self-executing. A constitution is enacted by people and must be respected and implemented by those people, because it cannot implement itself. So the taking of advantage of our constitution is very frustrating. The nature of elections in this country, because now we have elections that are the only window through which Ugandans can attain peaceful transition of power. But what kind of elections are we experiencing as a country? The Constitution promises regular, free and fair elections. For 26 years, we only implement regular. The free and fairness is yet to be seen, and this has been confirmed by Supreme Court at every time these elections are put to test through that arm of government. So this is a verdict on us as a people. But what is the best way to address this? You know, coalitions globally are based on 3 issues. One is the principles governing those coalitions, the nature of leadership they get or put forward to the people, and the minimum agenda for these coalitions. Honorable Semujju seems to has put forward what is the minimum agenda. And as a constitutional watchdog, I really would not sit here and say I support unconstitutional means, even when the constitution has been battered. Otherwise, organizations like Center for Constitutional Governance then should not exist. Because even when it is battered, it is the grand norm of the country. It has been battered at several fronts. The executive is planning another assault on our constitution, attacking the independence of the judiciary and discretion of courts. Yes, will it stand the test of time? Will it be a constitution that will start and end with NRM regime, whereby by the time this country is done with NRM, then the constitution will also be irrelevant and thrown away with the regime? Is that the legacy they intend to make? Or are they even bothered about the legacy at all? So these are the questions in the minds of Ugandans, and they are very disturbing. And if we are well-intended leaders, then we should rise to the occasion and resolve them.
Semujju, Dr. Kizza Besigye, I heard him. He talked of action more than words now. How, again, this question of how different is that going to be? When did the action, the former actions fail? Or did the former promises or expectations have no action that followed the promises?
I think the option is to fold our hands, go and sleep. Because every after election there has been a discussion, either led by Besigye or led by another person. I was a parliamentary journalist when Mr. Museveni changed the constitution to remove term limits.
203.
203, 2045. And then you had the formation of Parliamentary Advocacy Forum, in which many of Mr. Museveni's contemporaries were members, because there are many people who broke ranks with him at that stage. Yeah. The trouble is that you media people tend to personalize this thing as if it is about Besigye. I don't think I am a member of the front because of Besigye. I have personally disagreed with Dr. Besigye because he's human. But I don't want to fault him even when he has committed no fault. So this discussion leading to the formation of the front was never a Besigye's discussion. It's a discussion in which many of us participated. After elections that we have described to you, but elections that you personally witnessed, what do we do?
But as
what Chris says that
as leaders, we must keep you on toes. We must ask you the question. Conversely, it is the same thing we ask of Museveni, or the opposition always ask of Museveni, because we actually, many of us actually do not know whether behind the scenes there are more powerful people who push the president, just like you're in.
They are not there. Where? He's pushing himself. That there are people who are pushing him.
But if you are describing the last election as why did you accept to serve as an MP? If I were you, if you think the process was fraudulent and unacceptable, I would even have refused to join the parliament.
No,
because you are joining is conceding that yes, the other one is the ruling party 81.
So Chris, were you in this country? So you speak like you came here.
Sudanese.
No, I am wondering, because these elections happen here.
What we went through is fraudulent, and the North was calling elections.
I survived it. But how many people survived? There are those who did not survive.
If you are very serious as opposition, because the moment you accept to have a leader of opposition, you sit on the left side of the speaker, you are actually legitimizing the right side of the speaker.
I was in Luzira, Chris. I was in Luzira when your government arrested me. We even have leadership in the cells where we were. I had no option to contest because I was in Luzira, I was in prison. So this situation has been forced onto us. The trouble is that you also want to determine how we behave during this occupation. But I don't want to lose the point. The point that, the question that you're asking, Charles, is this new? This is not new. It is the same old effort. We will keep trying until it happens. In Libya, Gaddafi was president for 43 years. I was in Sudan when Sudanese were welcoming Bashir from South Africa, where they attempted to arrest him and hand him over to... I couldn't believe that a year later, the same people who welcomed Bashir and were on the street will be chasing him. Sometimes, when you are under this pressure, and Chris has also been there. I went to see him here at Chira when he had been arrested. They even denied him slippers. And he knows where he went.
That has become your song.
You did not go to court.
Every time we appear for a talk show, you have to...
Because I have to remind you, this has nothing to do with me as a person. We all aspire for a country that is governed properly. And I'm not going to be a sole beneficiary when that happens. Even within your own ranks, there are people who are asking Mr. Museveni, please, when will this thing happen? It is not a crime. We must have that discussion as a country and conclude it.
Interparty, that you bring me to that question at that point. Is there is it completely lost at inter-party level dialogue?
It is not. It is not.
Then why don't we see calls for that as well? Instead, what we see is whether it is at iPod, sorry, or whether it is Besigye, Dr. Besigye, insisting that Mr. Museveni, I want us to meet first as old comrades. You cannot determine it, but I'm saying that kind, is it lost?
The attempt to have it happen hasn't succeeded. I don't want to say it is lost, but it hasn't succeeded. For Ghana to transit from J. Rawlings, there was a discussion by all the actors. In Kenya, there was a discussion.
Even in Kenya?
Here in Uganda, after the 2016 election, there was an effort to do that. And I was part of that effort. We had even reached a level of requesting people to come and guarantee the discussion. The late Tanzanian President Benjamin Mkapa was supposed to come here and moderate a discussion. Unfortunately for Mr. Museveni, the moment you talk, dialogue means handouts. That's why you have seen when iPod goes to meet him, he's asking, what is your problem? No, we can make money available. He thinks people are grumbling because of welfare issues. He makes sure that it is welfare issues that are going to be dealt with. And I hope maybe it will happen, because you see, I am one of those who don't believe that we should have a violent change of leadership. And I have said it many times, that for me, if you're going to pick arms, please don't invite me. There, I am helpless. I can protest that one. Chris cannot stop me. Going on street protest, that I can do because it is constitutional. But picking arms to go and shoot a government out of power, I am not going to participate. But I cannot guarantee that at one time people will not do it, like Museveni did in the 80s. So my concern, I am Ugandan, I have children here, they must have a future. That's why I'm participating and making a contribution. And I want to invite everybody, including Chris, internally where you are. And I know you also want a country that is governed properly, whose future is guaranteed. And that's the aspiration of everybody. But every attempt to speak to Mr. Museveni, when the religious leaders went, you know what happened? He asked the Catholic, you have a circle, he made a contribution. Mubajje, you have a circle, he made a contribution. Did you hear their dialogue anymore? So because for him, he thinks if I deal with the people's welfare, then I can die as a president.
It's part of the laws of 48 laws.
Unfortunately,
he invited you for iPod, you chickened out.
Because it has been framed that the discussion with him was going to be a discussion on money.
Make your point. Will he put the words in your mouth?
We do not even have to go. I have told you, the situation room, the women, the elders, the religious leaders, they made many trips to us, between us and Museveni. We even prepared the memoranda. But he said, I want to meet the Besigye. Then they get photographed, and he says these things have been finished.
No, that's not true.
Because that was his demand.
By the way,
Chris,
you were not part of the committee. The committee that Museveni formed up
because Dr. Besigye makes an important ask. He says, what kind of transition should we have? We need to discuss that. And I want to give him the benefit of doubt that he means that what kind of transition should we discuss? And that does not limit it within opposition or within FDC. In my view, we should expand the discussion and say, NRM, is it lost that you cannot have any discussion which is meaningful,
okay, first of all,
even compromising on certain things
all,
with the other opposition guys?
President Yoweri Museveni has never refused the discussions with anybody. On the contrary, it is Honorable Semujju's party, the FDC, that has had Museveni phobia, the fear to meet him. But he is on record saying he can discuss and negotiate and engage with anybody. But them who have been refusing to go to iPod, even I think it was 2006 or 11, when the president, immediately after elections, invited all political parties, and FDC refused. Say, we don't want to go and take tea. But why don't you go there and refuse the tea and make your point? Secondly, the constitution, I was not in the CA. There is a chapter 18 in the constitution of Uganda that talks about amendment.
Those are amendments.
You know, it is very interesting. The opposition has brought amendments in the parliament. So when the opposition team brings amendments, proposals for amendments, it is okay. But when the government proposes amendments, then you are killing the constitution. Let's not have double standards. The constitution of Uganda is amendable, and there is nothing which stops any Ugandan from proposing an amendment, provided you follow the channels which are stipulated in the constitution on how you can amend those articles which can be amended. 3, the transition will happen. President Yoweri Museveni is not a metal, is not God, he's a human being. But for now, he still enjoys the support and the confidence of Ugandans. He has not stopped anybody from vying for the position of a president or any other. At the risk of repeating myself, he has not even gone through unopposed at any of the elections we have had in the last number of years. People come, they compete with him. How will the transition come? First of all, like I said, the constitution is clear that after every 5 years, we shall have regular,
violent elections
and fair elections. And to disagree with Sarah, if the elections we have had haven't been free or fair, court would have nullified the results, but they have not. They have upheld. There are countries where they have nullified and they repeat, and those provisions are there in our constitution. Therefore, to a large extent, they have been free and fair. That's why they are upheld. So the constitution doesn't bar anybody from contesting. Now, we are in a multi-party dispensation. And when the time comes, each party will discuss within its own house which candidate it will field. If the NRM party feels they want to field the President Yoweri Museveni, what will you do? If FDC says we are now fielding Hon Semujju, they will field him. If NUP says we are fielding who, and then you go into the playing field. If that one is not democracy, so what is a democracy? Unless you want to say democracy, now we change the definition to say removing Museveni equals democracy. But who removes Museveni? It is not the message to tell us how the transition should happen. It is Ugandans in the totality who will manage their affairs through casting their ballot and choosing whom they want.
Okay.
Whom they want.
We are now into midnight. And
but if Dr. Besigye thinks he should be installed as a president, therefore we shall have gone democratic. I don't think that's what the majority of Ugandans think.
Okay.
If he wants to be president, he has to face the population.
Okay.
Like Hon Semujju wanted to be an MP, he had to face the population
of
and
Kira municipality. Good. We need to now start thinking of concluding. But Sarah, the point that Dr. Chris Baryomunsi raises a very significant point. The kind of democracy we want to have. It brings me to the question of what kind of discussions should we really be having? I have argued that is it possible for anybody in the world to wish themselves out of power on their own? And you have said rightly that it should be through the Constitution. But here is a team on the other side called the NRM that says for us, even if our captain is 45 years, others retire at 30, we think he wins the game for us. But you are on this side, the opponents are arguing that no, we don't want that player on the other side. And then it brings in this issue of we cannot debate. It is, either or kind of discussion. So what kind of really discussion should this country be having? What kind of democracy? Are we just stuck? How do we get out of that you know, place.
You know, Charles, talk is cheap. We can sit here and say Uganda is democratic. Even as you go back to the first topic of marketing Uganda, you type on your phone Uganda and go to the images. What images does the internet bring? You will see police beating people. You will see military on the streets beating, including journalists. You will see people bleeding. Just type Uganda and go on images. So what country are we talking about? What is democracy? I have heard some people saying maybe we should redefine our democracy. I don't know whether they intend to say democracy standards are too high for us to meet. We should lower our standards. Democracy is clearly defined. Was defined by the Greek in the 12th century. It is known. We had democracy in our traditional setup systems. It is not foreign, as some people claim. The standards are clear, known to everybody.
Uganda gives me Bwindi Impenetrable, Queen Elizabeth National Park, Maxwell Falls, Kampala, Lake Mboro National Park. See,
can I just make
it's not true that Uganda, when you Google it, it will give you beatings and what. So, and then the flag of Uganda.
What does yours bring?
I wanted to spare Sarah and go to another search. Is Uganda a safe country?
No, you say is Uganda democracy?
Because when you Google Uganda, you find country in East Africa. It is landlocked in East Africa and with Rwenzori Mountains and immense Lake Victoria. Then the next wildlife, Bwindi Impenetrable, Queen Elizabeth, Machison Falls, Kampala, Lake Mburo. Then the third stage it goes to is Uganda a safe country? What language is spoken in Uganda?
Okay, what does Uganda safe country say?
So maybe I should go to what is Uganda a safe country?
Okay, but Charles, let's go back.
Then it says Uganda is a very safe country. But opportunistic crimes such as petty theft, credit card fraud, and home robbery occur, just like any other country. And then it says chances of being a victim are rare, and incidences would most probably be in cities like Kampala.
No, Charles, I get your point. Normally we search human rights in Uganda.
No, but I understand. This is really...
Human rights in Uganda.
Yeah.
Or you type the question we are debating, is Uganda democracy? What do you get? Normally we search human rights in Uganda. And that's like somebody concerned to know the health of the people. They would say human rights status in Uganda. What does it bring? Maybe you can also read for the viewers. What images does it bring?
Maybe I've now run
human
out
rights.
Sarah might have posted.
You have run out of...
No. What have I posted? I don't control the internet. I don't control internet. But
Uganda,
what is our human right? Is Uganda a democracy?
Is Uganda a democracy? First, it brings the institutions, civic
it will bring parliament institutions, but to go to
Citizens Coalition for Electoral Democracy, Forum for Women in Democracy, Westminster. Then is Uganda a democratic government? Is Uganda a free country? In the Freedom in the World 2020 report, Freedom House identified Uganda as a country considered to be, in quotation, not free. There are several areas of concern when it comes to human rights in Uganda, and the not free classification is due to both low political rights and civil liberties rankings. That's what, among other things.
Yes, commonly we search human rights in Uganda. It's why you will get all these images. But we don't need images. What happens in Uganda? What happens in Uganda? You look at the elections that maybe the new front, the Front for Transition is contesting. What was the nature of elections? It was, Kampala on 18th and 19th November was like Kosovo, or even worse. We have documentaries, including BBC. The world watches.
Yeah.
So, if you say that this is a normal election, that the framers of the Constitution...
Christianity, we talk over the original sin. What caused the Kampala scene you are talking about.
Life
what caused it.
presidency.
So you have to go back to it.
Life president.
Was it just in Kampala? How many
You are not
times?
talking about Kampala.
You know, we have many people claim that Kizza
Why was it in
Besigye is
Shigezi?
chaotic, the people power team are chaotic. But we have a person whom everybody agrees is peaceful. But Mugisha Muntu campaigns were disrupted more than 20 times. So even it is not the usual claim of branding people chaotic. Even people who are not known to be chaotic could not campaign freely in the last elections.
Okay.
So we do not have this. Way forward is Ugandans know what they want. And people who think the silence of Ugandans should be taken for granted will one day be surprised. Ugandans have fought dictatorships. It is very unfortunate that for 6 decades, because we marked 59 years, we are just a few months shy, 11 months and days now shy of 6 decades. That for 6 decades, in Uganda, nobody can hand over power peacefully to another. There are other countries we got independence within the same period, more or less. Ghana got independence in 1958, so just a difference of 4 years. But how far ahead are they with us? We also got countries in Africa that had independence, like Somalia
so
in
Ghana
1960.
a first world country?
It is, but it is, of course, it is
the
better
first
than
world
us.
country.
It is a middle-income class with stable political climate, stability, predictability, and happy people. It does not have tear gas all over the street, and I think because of COVID pandemic,
Uganda
even
is
the
one of
tear
the-
gas you purchased could have expired.
Uganda is one of the
But-
countries with the high
Oh.
happiness index, by the way. You Google, you are the one who likes Googling. You Google the happiness index. The,
I know we top
the national happiness
I
index.
know
for
we
Uganda.
top charts in taking alcohol and others, but that's we are discussing democracy today. Maybe that's because of the frustrations of the people. So what we need to do is we know what a basic election is. We were even moving in the civil society discussions to say, do we need to define elements of an election so that once we fall short, even that exercise is not referred to as an election. That is the discussion we are having as citizens of this country because of falling short of bare minimum standards that are expected in elections.
Semujju, way forward. The FDC, no, the front says that within the next 3 weeks, you're going to plan what needs to be done as the action points, implementable action. Way forward, with that in mind, what is the way forward on how to discuss, what type of discussion the transition should take?
The front, first of all, we're still speaking to
Other opposition members?
not opposition, because this has nothing to do with the opposition.
Okay.
We are speaking to civil society, we are speaking to religious leaders, because it is easier, and they have done it each time it is us leading. You will be demonized like Chris is attempting here. We think this country must have a discussion on how to peacefully end Mr. Museveni's rule. And if that doesn't happen, we will all be victims, I can assure you. People who are dying in Somalia, we are not yet born when Siad Barre was a leader. They are now the ones who are paying the price. So we have a duty as leaders. I remember at the beginning of this parliament, the speaker said he will put aside some hours to discuss the topic, the Uganda we want. I hope that discussion will eventually come.
We actually,
So
we actually have an organization, a WhatsApp group. We started about 5-6 years ago called the Uganda We Want. So for us, we shall be already on the way of discussing that.
So people like my friend here, Chris, can pretend that things are okay. But they know deep inside their heart that things are not okay. I mean, which country where someone who holds known office, like General Sari, and you have vice president, prime minister, everybody, they go to him for money, for opportunity, just because he's a brother of the president, And Chris wants us to be happy. That everybody now is on his way to Guru. Is on his way to Guru. And that is the democracy he's talking about. Elected leaders. So you don't know where he is. You go and ask your supervisors. They are on the road going to Guru.
Are you going to kill yourself because the General Sare is in the Guru?
I don't have to kill myself, but I aspire to have a country that is governed properly. Not a country that is governed by a family. That's what I aspire. For you, if you don't care, me, I care.
Honorable Chris, finally, way forward on this.
Well, the way forward is clear. We have all the necessary instruments to guide the politics, to guide what happens. It is not true that you can't foretell the future and the future is not predictable, unless if you don't believe in the constitution which we are using to govern this country. We shall have elections in 2026, and Ugandans will be free to participate. So for us, we insist that is the Ugandans out there. You see, sometimes somebody sits here and say Ugandans are not happy, as if you yourself you are Ugandans. The Ugandans are out there. They have just expressed their happiness or lack of it through elections by voting the people they wanted. If you want to look at the transition, look at the attrition rate in the parliament, over 70%. You are a member of parliament, people vote you out. You are a district chairperson, people vote you out. Even the president can be voted out if people have lost confidence in that president. So democracy is there. I don't know why these people are fearing the will of the people. So I just want to still insist that the constitutional framework that we have guarantees the rights of everybody to participate.
It's like going in the ring for boxing, and one of the boxers has a panga. And he says, why are you fearing boxing? This is what Chris is doing.
No.
The ring is there for all of us to participate, but one boxer has a pang and he says, why are you fearing boxing? You come.
You see, these people...
These are the elections that we are having here.
These people you talk of... Let's go to LC elections which we held. Who was holding a pang in LC elections?
The captain of that team.
No. Was Museveni in every village? In every village of Uganda. How many LC chairpersons did your party win? You go to LC5.
In Egypt, the last election that Hussein Mubarak presided over, the opposition got 0. In Tanzania, they have one MP, one opposition MP.
When?
After this election.
This is Uganda, not Tanzania, not Arab countries. Because if you are saying, how did you win to become an... Do you think you are so intelligent that if you are saying that the government suppresses all candidates and forces its way?
On my nomination, I was kidnapped and driven to nomination by the military.
So if you are saying that because you are given an impression that the government or NRM or President Museveni decides who becomes a leader anywhere in this country, including LCs and so forth. So do you think you are super clever to have defeated that might of government? The point I am making is that Ugandans are free to choose the leaders they want. Like they left NUP in their constituency and they voted you because they think you are, and I believe and I agree with them, you are a very effective member of parliament. You can see the members of parliament we lose in over 70% of members of parliament lose, including NRM MPs, and they are defeated by opposition. So are you saying President Museveni and NRM don't have that coercive element to make sure that we, the NRM MPs, win? So you see, you can think that the public or Ugandans probably don't understand, but they know. They know that they have the power, and that's the argument Message keeps saying. Ugandans don't have the power, they are not governing, they are not in charge of their country. Ugandans know they have the power to remove a leader or vote him, if he's an incumbent, to vote him back or remove him. And that's what we are going to follow. What I would advise Honorable Semujju and Kiza Besigye and the rest is for you to mobilize the people so that in 2016, 2026, you are stronger than the way you are now. and then we go into the boxing ring. Ugandans will decide. But for
Thank
any
you.
thoughts that you will use an constitutional means to topple government, do you think for us who are in the government, we shall just clap for you to remove us like that without going through elections or constitutional means?
You prepare to serve cappuccino and you sit with them.
No, absolutely. We have many platforms. We have Parliament. Parliament is one platform where we debate these issues. There is iPod. It's another framework where parties can discuss. But these people are allergic to discussions.
Thank you very much. I would have wished that the discussion goes on because it was just getting more interesting. But unfortunately, we have to close. We have overshot our time.
Charles,
Yeah.
I did show you human rights in Uganda, and you see the images.
Someone sent a message saying that Google is Google gives you answers that you ask for.
Yes.
That is Rugendo sent me a message saying, you tell my friend Sarah that Google gives you, you only ask it the type of question you want, and then it gives you the answer.
Somebody once said Google is controlled by NRM.
Human rights
Yeah.
in Uganda.
Yeah, because you asked human rights.
Yes.
But
yes.
that is okay. That's okay. Thank you so much, Honorable
Dr. Chris
Baryomunsi, Minister in charge of ICT.